G'day guys, welcome back to a new episode of the Boundary Riders podcast. Of course, a lot to talk about today. We're going to be talking about a couple of rebrands from different teams throughout the last week or so. Going to be taking a look at the fixture news, obviously dropping late last week. And of course, with the draft coming this afternoon, with this new episode coming out, we'll be taking a look at everything you guys need to know about the 2024 AFL draft. But let's not waste any more of your time. Let's roll the intro and get straight into it. And then Rankin from the pocket, don't tell me, Isaac Rankin!
Yeah.
He's just got the license for a brothel.
Well, I think Gather Round's going to be more than just AFL this next season.
It's at the handle at the back, Nick Dacos to get the pies home! He's done it! So as always, my brother is here to join me for episode 89, I believe it is. Anyway, we'll first get straight into the rebrand. So we've already had the Adelaide Crows. That was a couple of weeks ago. The Gold Coast and the Saints the last couple of weeks. St Kilda's just dropped today. If we had to give it a little bit of a 3-2-1 ranking, one best, three worst, what are you thinking?
Oh, three's the worst is the Crows. I don't get it. It doesn't look... I know they tried to go back to their roots, but it just doesn't look right. The Suns, it's sort of growing on me, not really. Like, the different Guernseys, they're, I think, hit and miss, their Guernseys, but I think that's what they needed to do, the Suns. But I do like the St Kilda one. I think it's just a modernised version of it. They didn't need to bug around with it. I think it was just what they needed to do, the Saints.
Yeah, I'm kind of the same as well. I think the Saints one, I'm probably not as big a fan as a lot of people, but I don't mind the change. The Gold Coast one's growing on me quite a bit. I've actually liked the red on red sort of jumper, their home jumper. So I think that's actually going to be really cool. I'm actually probably on the outer for all of this. I actually really like the yellow and blue clash jumper. No, I actually like it. I think it looks kind of cool. I don't know when they'll wear it. They'll only wear it against the Swans probably. But I actually like it. The blue socks is a miss though. I don't like the blue socks.
Yeah.
The Crows, I don't really like. The emblem's grown on me a little bit, but not enough to be any better than the Suns or the Saints. That's personally my belief. At the moment, because I think St Kilda, I don't know, other than the Essendon, I think St Kilda's was the oldest logo now, because everyone's kind of modernised their logo in the last 5 or 6 years, I would say. I think that obviously the Crows this year, the Suns, because they haven't really done it since their inauguration. I guess the Giants as well. So the Giants are probably sitting up there now. But I did say to you a couple of days ago when they announced the Gold Coast one, and not many people have mentioned this, but the Suns have basically just done what the Giants did. They've basically just gone, okay, the Giants, we're a big G. Suns are like, we'll go with a big S. That's basically what they're going to do. I mean, it's obviously a little bit different on the styles of it, but I kind of like it. I kind of think it's interesting that they've just kind of gone, we kind of want to go the Giants route now because they've obviously been a lot more successful than us. If I had to go hit or miss for all of them, I'd say it's a hit for the Saints. I actually think it's a hit for the Gold Coast. I'm actually growing to like the Gold Coast one, but I think the Crows one's a bit of a miss, to be honest. I think the Crows would have done a little bit better with what they did.
Yeah.
So now I think it's basically Essendon's or the Giants would be the next ones that would have to, quote unquote, modernise their logo if they wanted to, or a so-called rebrand.
The Giants one I don't think needs to be changed. I think.
I'm not saying it needs to be. I don't even think Essendon's does, to be honest. But I'm just saying, did they really need to modernise the Crows one?
Well, what success have Essendon had in the last 10, 20 years?
It is time for a rebrand.
Maybe that will win them the final.
Oh, fucking hell. The amount of time... The one thing I will say about all this rebranding stuff is the wank stuff that they need to do about the rebrand is this is us. This is our big change. This is our new chapter. It's like, bro, can you not fucking wank around with all of this? You did it just because...
I think it's more for the
change.
I think it was more for just the merchandise. They just thought, if we change the whole thing, we can change everything about the merchandise and we can get some money.
Yeah, more people will buy new products. Because let's be honest, the merchandise every single year, other than maybe a little logo change or a different colour of the hat.
Or a different sponsor.
Yeah, or a different sponsor. Nothing really changes. No. So I think a lot of the time that is the reason why they do it. Let's be honest. What are they changing on the Giants, the little training cap or whatever? What's changing on that? So I kind of get in that sort of aspect, there's a lot more merchandise to be sold from it. But they also have to make it like good as well. But I do think it's a bit of I think that's why they add the wanky aspects of like, this is our new chapter. It's like, bro, you're just selling merch. Let's be fucking real.
Yeah.
In the Gold Coast, did you see when they tried to unveil the Suns jumper? I can't remember when they did it. It was like on the beach or whatever. They tried to rip off the black tarp off of it, and they couldn't do it.
Well, did you see how bloody big it was? It was like it was really like, it just seemed stupidly high for someone that was literally on the ground and had to rip it from all the way over like that. It just seemed like they could have just put a curtain or something and just dropped.
Well, that's what the Tassie team did.
Yeah, and
I mean, it's almost time for the Tassie team to make a rebrand at this point.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they're 2028, 2029, so they're going to have to make a logo change in the next couple of years.
Yeah.
So you're thinking that Essendon have to do a logo change to make themselves relevant in finals?
Well, they're not relevant now in finals.
That would be a good point. So moving on, obviously the fixture was released late last week. Obviously news of Gather Round came throughout the early last week and that sort of stuff. Maybe a little bit of talk about Gather Round. People have been a little bit frustrated by the Gather Round release with 2 games in the Barossa and, for example, Brisbane they have to play Norwood again, which I thought was pretty disrespectful. I mean, what else did they have to do? They won the premiership for fuck's sake.
I thought that was pretty bullshit. I think, like, what are they going to do to play at the Adelaide Oval? It seems pretty disrespectful in a way.
I mean, Brisbane almost have the same amount of members as Melbourne do.
Yeah.
So I think the Melbourne and Essendon, because neither of them performed last year. The Bulldogs and the Lions both made both made finals. You'd think they'd play at Adelaide Oval.
Yeah.
And both of them are expected to be, top 8, top 10 bound this year. I'm talking the Bulldogs more than the Lions. The Lions are supposed to be right up there. So I was a bit surprised by that. I mean, at least they're not playing North again. I mean, like, no one wants to go down to Norwood and watch Brisbane just thump them for 100 points again like they've done the last 2 times. Yeah. I like the Thursday night game, Geelong versus Adelaide. I think that's good. I do think the Port should be having the first game of Gather Round. They've had the Crows have had the first 3 now.
Yeah, well, when it came out this year, I did think, maybe they made a side deal that they get the first game of Gather Round, but they did announce that it's not actually a part of their deal that they don't get the first game of Gather Round. So
it's weird that the Power don't.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't actually mind. I don't. Obviously, this is my side talking about it. I don't mind the Swans playing in the middle period of it because it feels like Gather Round. It starts up on the Thursday, but it really doesn't get cracking till the Friday because Friday is like you're off work.
Yeah.
You got the whole weekend, and then it's all just footy. That's because it's a footy festival basically. That's what it's been set up to be. It's not like the finals or whatever. I mean, I've never been in Melbourne during finals, but it just feels like it's always footy talk. Everything around the state is all about the AFL. Like when we were going up to Mount Barker last year, we went to go get a coffee at a cafe, and people were wearing the colours, and it's just what the state was about. So it's a little bit different, like finals. Where I guess Victoria is always a little bit footy conscious because they get 4 or 5 games there every fucking week. So I think it's a bit different. I didn't mind the Gather Round fixture. I think that Essendon and Melbourne should be playing at Norwood Oval. Like, come on. Melbourne don't have much of a crowd to begin with. I mean, fuck.
They can't even get 20,000 to the MCG. So
yeah, well, when I did that video going through predicting every single game of the season, there was a couple of Melbourne games at the MCG, and I'm like, fuck, that's going to be lucky to get 15,000. There was a couple of games last year at the MCG. I think it was Richmond v GWS at the MCG, and that got barely anyone there.
Yeah.
And Melbourne, I think, played the Giants at the same time. But just looking quickly at the Gather Round fixture, the Barossa game, the first one is on Saturday afternoon, North Melbourne v Gold Coast. I don't think many people are going to be going to that. To be honest, like Melbourne.
They have said that this ground will have more than what it did at Mount Barker, so I'm expecting about 15,000, 17,000 for the capacity.
Yeah, well, it's in development at the moment, but it's ahead of schedule, so it should be fine and ready to go. But last year I was actually surprised by the supporters that were there because it was the Giants versus the Gold Coast, and it was a bigger crowd than the Sydney game. Now that was partly because that GWS game was kind of standalone, and also Carlton were playing the first game at Adelaide Oval on the Twilight game. So that's kind of why the Swans game had a little bit less. But there was still a lot of crowd and there was still a lot of hype for it. The Barossa is a little bit further away. it's for people who don't know, Mount Barker is more. Basically, they're opposite ways of Adelaide Oval, but they're both a similar distance. The Barossa is a little bit further away. Unfortunately, you do have to go through Salisbury, I think, to get to the Barossa. So, a little bit unlucky. You may get stabbed if you want to stop off. So, I would personally stay. I'd probably just drive straight through the Barossa. Very nice part of the state, though, which is what they're kind of trying to do. Although I wouldn't have had 2 games up there. I would have just had the one, and I would have had, or maybe you would have had 2, but.
I think it's the way that I don't like the way that they've scheduled how there's 2 Nord games. The Nord game, on Saturday is the twilight game. So there's one at Adelaide Oval in the afternoon, then one at night.
Yeah, I didn't like that either. I think if you're going to do it, you either put I did like when they had it. If you wanted to go to a game at Norwood, it would be there at Friday afternoon. So you could go there, watch the game, and then go to the other game. Yeah. And you'd be there nearly in time because Norwood Oval is only about 20 minutes away. And, depending on traffic and all that sort of stuff, half an hour away at the most. So they've decided to no Friday afternoon game this year. They've given Collingwood v Sydney. I think it's a very good Friday night game, though, at Adelaide Oval. They'll get a huge crowd. Sydney and Collingwood both have great fan bases here in South Australia. So that will be packed. Tickets go on sale on December the 14th, I believe. So people stay away. Let me get my tickets first, and then you can do whatever the fuck you want with yours.
They've done the Saturday game like that, so that how there was a double header, that it would be classified as a full house for the night game.
Yeah.
This time that they're doing it like that, so then they can guarantee that they get a full house for the Essendon game, and it'll be 50,000 for that game. Yeah. So then they expect that the people that if they want to come back for it.
We haven't really decided what we're going to do yet. I guess we can talk about that later. But yeah, Sunday is going to be a bit weird. They've kind of, you could probably go to all 3 games on Sunday. Well, no, you couldn't. You could go to the Saints GWS game, but you have to get there late. Like, you're not getting from the Barossa when the Richmond Dockers game finishes and then getting to Norwood Oval. No. And then they've put the Port Hawthorn game a standalone last game, which I don't mind, but also it's like an hour after the Saints GWS game. So you either go straight from Richmond to Fremantle, wait 3 hours at Adelaide Oval for the Port game, or you go to St Kilda versus Giants, and then you try and fight through the traffic to get to the Port Adelaide game before it starts. So it's going to be very interesting to see how that goes. But yeah, gather round. I feel like this is probably the worst way they've set it up in the last 3 years. I feel like the first 2 years they did it pretty well. Maybe a couple of games weren't in the I think that maybe a couple of games could have been different, but yeah, I feel like still it wasn't the greatest way they set it up.
No.
But looking at the fixture itself going into 2025, I just wanted to quickly take a look at either the difficulty and also what teams play each other twice. So looking at it right now, we'll look at the difficulty first because I think that'll be a little bit better to look at. So looking at the difficulty, it looks like the Lions fittingly have the hardest draw. They have, this is according to Channel 9, Port Adelaide have the second hardest, Sydney, Fremantle, Geelong and Hawthorn equally hardest. Then we have Essendon, Collingwood and the Giants are the top 8 teams, 10 teams, to have the hardest draw. Then you've got the Bulldogs in 10th spot, St Kilda in 11th, Carlton are in 12th. Interesting. Did you watch the video I put out about picking every single game this season?
Next season. Haven't watched it.
So when you watch it, Carlton I have quite low. So very interesting that I have a pretty easy draw. Adelaide, Gold Coast and North Melbourne have an easy draw as well. West Coast. And then finally the easiest draw is Richmond, but also Melbourne. So, I mean, I just can't see Melbourne going up this year anyway, no matter what. Let's be honest. I just can't see anything going well for them, if I'm being truthful. But looking at the teams, everyone has to play twice. The Bulldogs have Brisbane, the Giants, so 2 teams from the top 6 they play. They have Fremantle, Essendon and St Kilda from the middle part, and then they play North Melbourne twice. Carlton have Port Adelaide and Hawthorn from the top 6. They have Collingwood and Essendon from the middle 6, and they have West Coast and North Melbourne from the bottom 6. Collingwood have Brisbane and Hawthorn. Carlton and Fremantle, and then Melbourne and Adelaide. That seems pretty tough, I would say. I mean, having the bottom 6 teams and having Melbourne and Adelaide, I mean, I'm expecting the Crows to do better things this year, so we'll see how that plays out. Fremantle have the Swans and Port Adelaide, the Bulldogs, Collingwood and St Kilda, and then they have West Coast. That's pretty tough, I'd say.
Yeah, we're only lucky that they do have West Coast in the Derby.
Yeah. I mean, also, it's like, well... Yeah, but I mean, you get them anyway.
That can be also a tough one because they're always in the rivalries like that. They will perform West Coast. So
I mean, West Coast beat them last year. Yeah. So we'll see how that plays out. After that, we had Essendon who have the Swans and the Cats, Bulldogs and Blues, Gold Coast and the Tigers. Essendon have a decent draw. They wouldn't want to fucking miss finals. They will. Or at least they'll lose their first one. St Kilda, they have Geelong, the Giants, Bulldogs and Freo, Melbourne and the Tigers. Not too hard there for the Saints. Having the Cats twice, though, is a bit tough. But, I mean, that's not that bad. Brisbane, they have Sydney, Geelong, Hawthorn twice. They have Bulldogs and Collingwood twice and the Gold Coast. That's definitely... I can definitely see why they have a hard draw, but... Yeah. Brisbane at home, they're going to be hard. They
always are, yeah.
Sydney have Brisbane twice, Power twice, and the Giants twice. They have the Dockers, Essendon, and North Melbourne twice as well. So, I mean, that's not too bad. I mean, I don't know about Port Adelaide and.
Well, that's the first time I reckon since 2014 or something, or 15 something that Port and Swans played twice in the same year.
Yeah, well, hopefully we don't lose twice and get smashed in the other one.
Well, that's right. You can beat us in a prelim.
Yeah, then we get smashed in the granny. It's a big deal. Port Adelaide have Sydney, Geelong, Hawthorn, Carlton, Freo, and the Crows. That's pretty tough, I'd say.
That is a tough one.
Definitely why they've up the top there in the difficulty department. Geelong have Brisbane, Port, GWS, Essendon, St Kilda, and the Tigers. Got a bit lucky there, I'd say, with the Tigers twice, to be honest. But anyway, because, I mean, that's just 2 smashings. And one of them's down in Gardenia Park. So that's going to be... I mean, that could be like Melbourne 2011, 2012, when they smashed it by like 150 points. That's got that written all over it. Giants have Sydney, Geelong, Bulldogs, St Kilda, Gold Coast, West Coast. That's pretty good, I would say. I mean, Geelong as well. They usually play pretty well against the Cats down there. So... not too bad. Hawthorn have Brisbane, Port, Carlton, Collingwood, Melbourne, Adelaide. That's tough.
Yeah, I think, well, everyone thinks that the Hawks are going to go up this year, next year. So, getting a harder draw, you'll actually see how good Hawthorn really are. Maybe they did go a bit too early. Maybe everyone has gone a bit too early on them, but you never know.
Yeah, I mean, I think the expectations are definitely going to be there. We'll see what happens with them. I've picked them to make the 8. So I still think they're going to be good. And with the recruits they picked up, I think they're definitely up for some good times. Then the Gold Coast have Brisbane, GWS twice, Essendon twice, and then Melbourne, Adelaide, and Richmond twice.
It's not easy. No,
Gold Coast haven't got it as easy as what they did last year. I mean, yeah, because Melbourne... they're such a hard read, Melbourne. Who knows? The Crows, I think, are on the up, so I don't know. I think that's not easy. And then... they've got the Tigers twice, I'd say. Melbourne have Hawthorn twice, Collingwood, St Kilda, and then they have the Gold Coast, West Coast, and North Melbourne. Yeah, I can see why that's easy. I mean, Hawthorn being the team in the middle, being that top 6 team, so they got the easiest of the top 6, essentially. Collingwood, St Kilda, Collingwood will be pretty difficult, but St Kilda could be 50-50 either way, so could be the Gold Coast. And then West Coast and North... interesting to see how that plays out. The Crows have Port Adelaide and Hawthorn twice, Collingwood twice, Gold Coast, West Coast, North Melbourne. West Coast have GWS twice, along with Carlton, Freo, Melbourne, Crows, and Richmond. North Melbourne have the Swans twice, along with the Bulldogs, Blues, D's, Crows, and the Tigers as well. And the Tigers have the Cats twice, along with Essendon, St Kilda, Gold Coast, West Coast, and North Melbourne. Looking at it right now, I think the difficulty one, I can definitely see why Port Adelaide and Brisbane have the hardest draws written down. It's not a lie. I could definitely see why those two have harder draws. But let's move to the draft. So, of course, as of recording's on a Tuesday. On the Wednesday, which is when this comes out, the draft will happen tonight. So before we get into a couple of phantom drafts from a couple of, I guess, experts, I wanted to read through a bit of news topics over the period. So a couple of interesting topics that have been talked about over the last few days are trading picks, which obviously can happen on the night. Last year, probably the big one was when the Crows traded into the top 6 and then picked up Dan Curtin. He didn't seem too keen to get there, but anyway.
Well, they don't seem to be playing him.
Yeah, they don't seem to be playing him too much. But North Melbourne seem to be keen to trade their future first. So, to try and get another pick in this year's first round draft. So, North Melbourne have basically ruled out getting rid of their pick 2 for this year. But they are willing to look at trading out their future first. So, interesting if a team like maybe a St Kilda or Essendon or the Gold Coast who have 2 first-round picks, if they would potentially want to get rid of one to get a future first. Which I think, especially a team like a St Kilda or an Essendon, I feel like would be pretty keen to do that. Personally, I would love if Sydney would do it, but I don't think North Melbourne are going to take pick 19 or 22 for that. So we'll see how that plays out. Sydney are also looking to trade into the draft a little bit further in, as they've got 19 and 22, like I just said. So trying to pair those 2 picks to potentially move up into the draft to get a higher pick or something. I would say maybe Giants would probably be an option there, maybe, because I think they have a middle 10 in the teens pick, so could be an option there. Like I said, Essendon and the Gold Coast both have multiple first-round picks at their disposal. They're amongst a couple of clubs who are looking to trade back into the draft after matching bids for their academy guns. Obviously, Essendon with Isaac Kako and Leo Lombard for the Gold Coast. A lot of news in the last couple of days as well with Leo Lombard, the fact that he could potentially be picked up in the top 10. So Gold Coast obviously have the points anyway, but interesting to see how the Gold Coast play that. And then St Kilda as well as a team who is open to trading back into the first round of the draft, while the Saints have also potentially of splitting their pick where they have at the moment 7 and 8. So I personally don't think St Kilda will trade back. Maybe they'll try and go a bit hard. They've been trying to look at North Melbourne's pick 2, but I don't think North Melbourne are going to trade away pick 2 now for 7 and 8.
If I'm St Kilda, I'm either you go as hard as you can for North Melbourne's pick 2 or you leave it. You don't go back. I think there's no point of going back. They're already in a place that doesn't really have a finals list. Yeah. They don't want to go back to, say, a 15 to 20 pick.
Yeah.
And lose and go back to where they were.
Yeah, I feel like St Kilda just top up with some young talent and then push forward the next couple of years. I mean, they kind of overachieved in 2023 when they made the finals. But I do think there are some young players coming through that are promising. So I think if they can just add some more young players to that list, they'll definitely be what they should be doing. On the Richmond side of things, at this stage, their pick 1 is all but certain to be Sam Layla. So the Richmond Tigers have basically confirmed that he's going to be going at pick 1. Yeah. So that's what they look like they're going to be doing with pick 1. And pick 6, it looks like at the moment that Josh Smiley is the potential option. The Tigers have looked at trying to move up to pick 2, but like I said, North Melbourne are pretty keen to just hold that pick. So Josh Smiley is around the mark of pick 6. So have to wait and see on that front. On Sid Draper, now this is the highest draft pick prospect from SA. The Crows have pick 4. However, Carlton have expressed a lot of interest in Sid Draper, who met with Michael Voss last Friday. He's widely being considered to be going to the Crows. So obviously the Blues could potentially pick him up at pick 3. I really can't see the fact the Blues would take him, to be honest. I think that I feel like at this point, Jagger Smith is expected to be going around pick 3. I'm thinking that's what's going to happen.
I think they just wanted to give it
another talking point.
Yeah.
It does seem that Michael Voss likes the kid, I guess.
Yeah.
I just don't think that Sid Draper... I feel like a lot of clubs now are probably pretty... I guess Carlton is a pretty big Victorian club, so they don't really get many people leaving very often. But I think when they've got so many midfield players there that are from Victoria in that sort of top 5 anyway, Carlton are probably pretty keen to go there anyway, go to that point. And then, I'm pretty sure that Sid Draper will be ending up at the Crows at this stage. And then Joe Berry as well, probably supposed to be going around that teen sort of point as well. He did say that he watched a fair bit of Robbie Gray as a kid, likes to be pretty creative and dangerous. So is expected to try to go that 10 to 20 mark. Port Adelaide do have pick 13.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like Port Adelaide, with the fact that they kind of lost that trade with Dan Houston, they want to pick up something pretty good with pick 13. What do you think Port Adelaide should be looking for in the draft night?
Well, they're saying that they will probably take him if he's still on the table. I think just trust your gut and go for it if he's there. I think if you're not going to do that, you're going to go for a developing defender.
You think? But yes, there's a couple of defenders in this year's draft. A couple of tall defenders, but a lot of it is midfield heavy, which is pretty understandable. So for Sydney, we got picked 19 and 22. So looking at it, I don't think Sydney will. I think Sydney's potential pick would be there's a key forward around pick 19 that they were saying could be an option. So the form guide from Cal Toomey was saying that pick 19, where Sydney's first pick would inevitably be, would be for a Luke Trainer, which is a half-back. They've also got players like Jack Whitlock, his brother Matt Whitlock as well. Should be around that mark, but most of his points are midfield-heavy draft is pretty much the main point, which is why some people have suspected that North Melbourne would be wanting to trade their pick 2, because maybe they'd want to split or get rid of pick 2 and then St Kilda as an option, which is 7 and 8, because there's going to be midfield heavy. It's a very talented draft. It's a top draft that they're saying. It's one of the dream drafts that we've seen in a while. So that's why people have potentially put that. Now, Cal Toomey has released a Phantom Form Guide. He has gone with the top 10 players for November going into the draft. He said that number 1 was Levi Ashcroft, number 2 was Finn O'Sullivan, 3 was Harvey Langford, 4 was Jagger Smith, 5 was Sam Layla, 6 was Murphy Reed, 7 Sid Draper, 8 was Alex Toro, 9 was Josh Smiley, and 10 was Harry Armstrong. Now, that's just his form guide. That's not what his Phantom draft is. So Finn O'Sullivan's expected to go at pick 2 with North Melbourne. Jagger Smith was supposed to be going for pick 3 for Carlton. And then Levi Ashcroft's probably going to be going around that 4, 5, 6 sort of mark, which obviously Brisbane will match and take him. So the 2 Phantom drafts that I want to take a look at, one from Fox Footy, one from Cal Toomey on the AFL.com. So they're pretty similar, but also a little bit different. So this is Ben Waterworth from Fox Footy. I mean, I'm going to just assume that he's very talented at his job and knows everything. So I'm just going to go with that. He's gone with pick 1, Sam Layla, which would go to the Tigers. Pick 2 would be Finn O'Sullivan to North Melbourne. 3 would be Jagger Smith to Carlton. He's made a bit of a surprise pick here. He said Harvey Langford to go to the Crows at pick 4. I'd be very surprised.
Yeah, I'd be very surprised if the Crows don't take Sid Draper.
Yeah. He says 5 here would be where Levi Ashcroft would go, and obviously Brisbane would match that pick. Melbourne to 6 would be Alex Toro. 7 for Richmond would be Josh Smiley. He says here Draper would fall down to 8th pick, which would be for St Kilda. I just doubt that the Crows are going to let go an SA prospect to then go down to there when they have, a potential top 5 pick there for an SA prospect. I don't think that's going to happen, to be honest. Pick 9 is where the Gold Coast would potentially pick up Leo Lombard, and then 10 is Toby Travalia. So that would be the top 10 according to Ben Waterworth. Yeah, like I said, I feel like the Crows, it wouldn't be dumb because, who knows? And the Crows haven't really had the best picks in the side there in the draft at the time.
Round 1, no.
For quite a while. Other than Riley Thilthorpe, there's been a lot of draft picks that they've wasted from the first round. So they'd want to get it right. And I feel like picking an SA prospect is a good idea when they're up there. So we'll see how that plays out. But looking at the Phantom draft from Cal Toomey, he has gone Sam Layla to the Tigers at pick 1, Finn O'Sullivan to North Melbourne at pick 2, Jagger Smith to Carlton at pick 3. Cal Toomey has said that the Sid Draper probably picked up by the Crows at pick 4. Levi Ashcroft would be getting his matched pick at pick 5. So it looks like here he said that Harvey Langford would fall down to pick 6 and get picked up by Melbourne. Josh Smiley to the Tigers at pick 7. Number 8 is Toby Travalia to the Saints. Pick 9 would be Leo Lombard to the Gold Coast as a match pick. And then pick 10 would be Alex Toro. So very similar. They are the same 10 players, I believe. It does look like it. So I'm thinking this is going to be a pretty interesting draft. This is supposed to be a pretty big dream draft for most clubs. Looking at it, I think that if the Tigers can nail their top 25 picks in the top 25, I think they've got 7. So if they can nail them, I feel like their rebuild will be well and truly underway.
Yeah.
Sam Layla seems like a very good midfielder. Josh Smiley seems a little bit more of a bigger body. I think that's going to be pretty decent. Levi Ashcroft, one of the most informed kids in the draft bracket. I feel like it's very, very interesting that they get a pick 5 Brisbane after winning the premiership. Who knows? We'll see how that plays out. But you're thinking for a Port Adelaide, it would be a key defender to look at if they don't have their best pick.
I think you'd have to. You think, yeah, pretty much. You're looking at all these players. It's a very midfield heavy draft, but everybody knows that you can pick a diamond out of the rough at pick 50. You always can pick, but you have to know your first round picks.
So the first tall defender in the draft, or tall prospect, is Alex Toro, which is expected to be going in the top 10. St Kilda have been linked to him quite a lot. So North Melbourne has been linked to him a little bit from the pick 2, but I don't. That's if they potentially shuffle down. I don't think North Melbourne are going to do that. I do think that North Melbourne should be going for big body prospects, because at the end of the day, the draft pick is a number, and if you can have the best defender from the draft, especially like North Melbourne, who are struggling for tall prospects, maybe that is an option to go for. But I don't think they're going to do it. They usually pick the best player at that point in the draft.
And you think, looking at the North Melbourne midfield, it's stacked already. Do they really need another one that can chuck them at half forward?
Yeah, or
half back that they do with Sheasel and McKercher?
Yeah.
So it could be an option, but for me, why wouldn't you go for the best defender in the draft? And like you said, it's a draft pick. It's pick 2. Who cares?
Yeah.
Best.
I mean, I think it was Tim Taranto. This would have been when the Giants obviously picked him up. He was expected to go around 6 or 7. The Giants picked him up at pick 2, and well, he was one of the better players from that draft. Now, I mean, he's one of the better midfielders in the game. So, I mean, at the end of the day, a draft pick, when you have a number next to it, I mean, Errol Goulden was picked up in the 30s. Now, yes, he's an academy pick for the Swans, but like he'd be, if you had Errol Goulden right now, you knew how good a career he would have. You would be picking him in the top 5, obviously. Yeah. So, I mean, obviously a draft pick. I think if you have a potential to pick up a tall defender who's the best in the draft, and he's expected to go top 10, I would be interested to see if North Melbourne would pull the trigger and maybe make a big play like that. Now, for a tall forward side, Harry Armstrong is the highest prospect in this year's draft, expected to go around pick 10 to 20 as well. Looks like Richmond, Melbourne, St Kilda have all had a look at it, as well as Port Adelaide, who potentially have looked at him as well. So a tall forward. Obviously, we've seen a lot of tall forwards at draft year move to play back, in their careers. I think Jacob Wiedering was one. Harris Andrews was one as well. So interesting if that goes to plan. Bo Allen as well. So he's a midfield defender, but he's expected to be going with the first... he's obviously from WA. He's the top prospect from WA. West Coast are expected to pick him up if he falls to pick 13, but he is expected to go around those early teens. So I'm interested to see how that plays out. Toby Travaglia, I did see someone in the comments, I did say it was Travaglia. Apparently the G is silent, so thank you for telling me that, because it did sound like a bit of a fuckwit. But anyway, like they're saying, Joe Berry, he's a small forward. They are expecting that he'll go around that pick 15 mark. 15 to...
So that's what a Port need, a small forward or a big defender.
Yeah.
Because I can't trust Radicale.
Well, I mean, you can't really trust a first round draftee,
but I'll be honest with you, I think I could trust him more than Radicale as a defender. Because you're actually picking a defender.
Yeah.
He's a makeshift defender. And I think it's funny how, like, ex-boys... Like, I think I heard Cam Mooney today or yesterday say that he's a defender. He's got athleticism to be a defender. It's like, but he doesn't have the athleticism to be anywhere on the field. He can't be a forward. He can't be a defender.
He never played that well as a ruckman either. So yeah. I don't think he's never really had the tank to be a ruckman, especially nowadays. You need to have a tank to run almost 80-90% of game time to play as a ruckman in the AFL now. It's more world soccer at the moment because they're off on international break. Do you know why they have the UEFA Nations League? I mean, it kind of sucks and no one gives a fuck about it.
Well, did you hear about San Marino?
I will say that is the story I did want to talk about for this. They moved up to League C for the first time after winning their game against Liechtenstein, whoever the hell that is. The team who is the lowest ranked world soccer team, San Marino, won against them. And they have moved up because of that win. So
they hadn't scored a 2 goals in a game since that. Besides in this qualifying phase, ever.
Yeah, so that's it's a little bit disappointing, I would say.
Well, I can just see it. They'll go up to the next group, and then they'll get smashed in every game, and it'll just be like, we're humbled. All right, we had our moment, okay.
Yeah. So I really don't get the United UEFA.
They wanted to do it because of the international friendlies that meant nothing, so they made this.
So they did this
phase to make it nothing as well.
Yeah. So looking at it more, people maybe care about is the World Cup qualifiers for Australia. So Australia in their group right now are in second spot behind Japan, who are just dominating basically. Saudi Arabia are in third. China are in fourth. We play Bahrain tonight, tomorrow morning basically. So you guys will know the result as this comes out, I think. You said we lost to Bahrain last time at home.
Yeah, from an own goal.
So let's hope that doesn't happen again. But it's very interesting to see that Japan are just dominating the group. They've only got 1 draw, and the other games they've won pretty convincingly. They have a goal difference of 18 plus. Far out, dude. Looking at other matches, though, from qualification, they have North Korea versus Uzbekistan, China against Japan. China will get fucking killed. Saudi Arabia against Indonesia. Saudi Arabia are going to kill them. And then we play against Bahrain, like I said. So I believe the fact where we're sitting right now, we would qualify for the World Cup. Is that right?
Yeah, we have to. If you finish in this group of group phase in the top 2, you qualify straight to the World Cup.
Yeah. So we should, but the new way that it's set up, though, is that there's a lot more World Cup teams coming into this World Cup. I think it's the biggest now. So I think New Zealand as well is a pretty big chance of qualifying for a World Cup for the first time in quite a while as well.
Well, you'd like to say as a Kiwi to say that Chris would stay in his form, but that's still 3 years away, 2-3 years away to stay in his form.
Yeah,
so
I mean,
he's kind of peaked too early, I think.
Yeah, that's true. They kind of give up there, Chris. Jesus Christ. I mean, he's one of the top scorers in the Prem at the moment, which is pretty good to see from the New Zealand point of view. I mean, Australia don't even have that many players in the Premier League. They have Harry Suter and Massimo Luongo, and then his teammate
Cam Burgess.
Oh, Burgess, that's what his name is, yeah. So that's who we have. Epic. And then, New Zealand have the top scorer, one of the top scorers in the Premier League, even though they can't really qualify. I mean, when's the last time they qualified for for a World Cup? I couldn't even remember the last time they did.
Yeah, it'll been a while.
Yeah, I'll try and have a quick look, but I doubt they've qualified very quickly. I mean, their last couple of games, they've kind of, decimated everyone. They won 8-0 against Samoa. I mean, I didn't even know Samoa played soccer, to be honest. Before that, they played Vanuatu, who beat them 8-1, so that's pretty epic. And then before that, they played Malaysia and won 4-0. So I mean, no wonder they've never qualified for World Cup. They play all these people. They get half a promotion basically. So they play in the qualification stages and they see what happens. They play in Tahiti, Vanuatu, and Samoa in their group, and they are shockingly 3 from 3 with wins and a goal difference of 18 plus. Shocker. That's basically all, and that's their last game is against Fiji in the 21st of March. Why is that even coming up? I think that was their last game that they played. But before then, when they've played international friendlies in 2024, they drew to the US, they got beaten well by Mexico, drew to Tunisia, and then lost to Egypt. So when they've played a team that's not built up by just random, civilians, they're actually not the greatest. But Chris Wood is still scoring quite convincingly. He scored a hat-trick against Samoa. So I would love to see how many players from Samoa I would even register to know. Like, I don't... Yeah, they're not even on here. Like, there's no... They got Lionel Taylor, so, they're trying to get Lionel Messi 2.0. But none of them, I would say, are located to a team that's outside of Samoa. I would range a guess. Yeah, I mean, I can't even click on their profiles, so they don't even play for anyone. Anyway, that's basically all for that. Will this update? It is going to. I saw that the Falcons got smashed 6-38, I think it was, against the Broncos it was. So they've fallen from grace. The Bills were the first team of the season to finally beat Kansas City. There was one game that you were talking to me about that you said was one of the games of the week, I guess. Which one was that one? It was against the
Bengals and Chargers.
The Bengals and the Chargers, yeah. So Chargers did win that one 34-27. Bengals probably not having the greatest season, if I'm being honest. They are 4-7. Falcons have fallen right off the pace, unfortunately. Now they've lost their last 2 games. Really good job, boys. They are still in the playoff spots because they are leading the NFC South. Yeah, South. Good on me. Luckily, the Buccaneers have lost their last 4. Thank the Lord. And the Saints have won their last 2, and the Panthers won their last 2. So, luckily, the Buccaneers have just dropped all hope. The rest would be in serious trouble. Looking at the playoff spots, though, we are 6-5. Cardinals are in the playoff spots in 6-4, and the teams fighting for a wild card spot, the Vikings are 8-2. So,
Yeah.
little bit. I mean, I guess there are probably. I mean, Americans probably understand how it works, obviously, and they've been doing it for years. But as someone who's sitting here watching AFL, they're like, you've got 2 more wins than teams who are like automatically qualifying. It's like pretty bullshit. And the other teams there are the Packers and the Commanders, both who have better records than the Cardinals and the Falcons. So anyway, looking at it, the teams fighting for a playoff spot in the NFC side, Rams and the Seahawks, along with the 49ers, 5-5. So 2 wins off the pace from potentially knocking off a spot in there. God, the Cowboys are right down, aren't they? 3-7. God, they're like the biggest team in the. Like they're basically. I don't want to say this with like offending someone, but they're like America's team almost. So I don't know if there'd be someone like they're not the America's team. I don't know, bro. I don't live there. On the AFC side, the Chiefs still on top. Bills are 2nd. Steelers are 3rd. Texans are 4th. This is where it's a little bit more fairer, I guess, on the side of things. It looks a little bit more truthful. The Chargers are in 5th in a wild card spot with the Ravens and the Broncos, who got in there after smashing the Falcons. The Colts are still chasing along with the Dolphins. Interesting to see if the Dolphins can come back. They've won their last 2, but they are a long way off the pace. They did get Tua back a couple of weeks ago. Yeah, so they are getting him back, and hopefully they can still charge a little bit more. Raiders down the bottom with Jaguars and the Titans along with the Browns. So the AFC is very top heavy than bottom heavy. Like there's 4 teams that have only got 2 wins so far, and on the NFC side, there's basically only like 2 teams that are like decent. The Detroit Lions are obviously smashing everyone, and then the Eagles are right up the top as well. So looking at it right now, I can't remember. Do you remember what your last prediction was for the playoff? For the
One was the
Super Bowl?
Ravens and the Detroit Lions. The Lions still look good.
Ravens.
The Ravens. If it's not Derrick Henry, it's no one.
Yeah.
Or Lamar Jackson. Sorry. So if it's them 2, if you stop their running game, they're screwed.
Yeah.
At the moment, I think if you're looking at it, you'd have to say the Chiefs. Even though they
Unfortunately.
lost the Bills, and I wouldn't say Pittsburgh because the fact is that yes, they beat Baltimore, but they didn't actually get a touchdown in that game. They won it off 6 field goals.
Yeah.
Pittsburgh. So I think it's out of the top 2. Yeah, the Bills and the Chiefs, and you can't go past the Lions at the moment on the NFC side.
Yeah, well, other than maybe Philly, but even then, Philly had a really good start to the season to the mid-period, but then dropped off towards the end. So if they can continue, last season. So if they can continue the form that they've had at the moment, then they're definitely every chance of going back to the Super Bowl where they made it in 22, I believe, the 2022-2023 season. But yeah, there's not many other teams like fighting for it on the NFC side. The Vikings are doing pretty well. They're just unlucky they're in the same division as Detroit. And then the Packers, also in the same division, I believe, are also in the wild card spot. So that's really heavy in that NFC North area, and the Bears, unfortunately, sitting on bottom of that group. So, division, sorry. So, right now, I would say 49ers are a long way away off the pace. I can't see them doing it. I'm thinking Detroit at this stage. It's pretty early on, but I'm pretty confident at the moment the NFC. Detroit are pretty well dominant. And then I'm liking the Chiefs, unfortunately. It's a little bit of an obvious pick, but even though they did lose against the Bills just don't seem to perform that well in playoffs. So that's why I'm a little bit concerned about them beating the Chiefs, because they've played a couple of times in big playoff games, and the Bills just haven't been able to stand up in the big moments. So they're going to have to if they're going to want to get past the Chiefs, because, I mean, let's be honest, they'll be there at the AFC Championship game.
Yeah.
Let's be honest. But guys, that's basically all we have for today's episode of the Boundary Riders podcast. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching episode 89. If you did enjoy it, make sure to leave a like and subscribe over on YouTube. Obviously, the channel is probably not going to get as many videos coming out. We're going to be trying to drop one every Tuesday of either a clip from the podcast, which is edited a little bit, or just a random video like we did with the predicting every single game of the AFL season. So we're going to be releasing any sort of videos on Tuesday. As it gets closer to Christmas though, I haven't really decided if we're going to be doing many podcasts over Christmas period. I may have to actually work around that period, so we'll have to wait and see. But YouTube, definitely we've got a lot of plans for next year. That's what we're trying to start up the Tik Tok again and the Instagram to really grow them up, because for an AFL sort of focused channel, I guess, it's pretty hard to grow fully on YouTube. So the best part, I think, is probably TikTok. It's where you probably want to be the biggest. So that's probably going to try and grow them up again. But of course, if you're a YouTube subscriber, you are a OG. You're like top fans. We love you the most. Okay? But yeah, so like and subscribe over on YouTube, guys. And if you are listening on Spotify, of course, make sure to leave us 5 stars, because I asked super nicely. I just called you my OG fans. You leave 5 stars. We will love you long time. And then also make sure to follow so you are notified on the podcast every single week. But again, guys, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. And we'll catch you all next week.
See you later, guys.